Okay. I think we're live. Cool. I don't have... There it is. Perfect. So we're trying something new today. We're gonna do this on YouTube. We're gonna see how it goes. This is my first time doing YouTube. We may be jumping platforms here, just so I can consolidate everything onto one platform and kind of give me a little bit easier time, a little bit less management. It's definitely going to take some time for me to port everything over, but that's what we're doing. So, did a tournament on Saturday, and it was a pretty good one. About 20 players, a good mix of armies, and I took my Orks. We played. It was a 3-round event, and I just wanted to do kind of a recap on how that went, talk about what I felt worked, what I could change in the future. And yes, I did just say could. That's just kind of who I am. So, all right. Sorry, I just still getting used to this setup. So hopefully I have audio. Let's find out. Because again, I'm just learning everything. Perfect. All right. So let's dig in. Before we get started, some announcements. End of March, I will be working at Adepticon, so you will not see me for probably a full week. I may go live here and there just to kind of talk about what's going on at Adepticon and how that is going. The 21st of April, I am running an event for a convention called RegionCon that will be in Maryville, which is a town not too far from me in the Northwest Indiana region. In June, I will be running a fundraiser for Military Gaming Command. And I've already spoken about these folks quite a bit and what they do. So again, if you want to know more, go to militarygamingcommand.org. They do a lot of good things. Check it out. Feel free to donate. It's awesome what they do for the veterans in that community. And that is a community I am a part of, so it is something that is very near and dear to me. Again, thanks to all the subscribers. I do appreciate you. You guys really are what makes this community and this channel grow, and it's awesome. I appreciate you. All right, so my list. Excuse me, sorry. I'm going to drink a whole lot of water today. My list is I brought my Orks back out, kind of dusted them off. I have been jonesing to get them on the table for a while. One of the reasons I wasn't really sold on playing them right away is because I had probably 10 to 12,000 points worth of Orks that all went away in the fire, and it was one of those where I just wasn't super thrilled about the prospect of rebuilding that massive army. A lot of time was spent building and painting, and that was actually the second time I had rebuilt my Ork army, so I was already kind of in a mentally exhausted state. And so as I started slowly rebuilding this, I managed to kind of get into some trades and some sales and stuff here and there and built a couple different armies to just kind of feel things out. See if I really wanted to get back into Orks completely, or if I wanted to kind of explore some other options since I was starting from ground zero. I did manage to kind of fall into some dude who was selling a whole lot of stuff for not a whole lot of money. And so I decided to take advantage of it, and I got quite a bit of Orks for a very good and cheap price. And so I've just been jonesing to get them on the table ever since. And I finally decided to played a couple games. I think I played 2 or 3 games with this list before the event as practice, and those were the first 2 or 3 games I played with my Orks in probably 3 months, 4 months. It is Evil Sunz. I decided to go with Evil Sunz for a lot of reasons. One, I tend to just try to find things that are kind of weird or skewed or not good and see if they're really not good or if there's like some underlying issue that's preventing them from doing well. And Evil Sunz and Bad Moons were the 2 worst performing factions when I checked. And I already don't like Bad Moons because they just don't play the game I want to play. Whereas Evil Sunz, I can get them to play the game I want to play. Bad Moon's culture bonus is a lot of shooting, and that's not generally where I like to play the game. I tend to play it in the fight phase. I do try to bring some balances. I want some shooting. I don't want it to be all melee. But with Bad Moons, it just you tend to bring more guns than I would want to bring, and they don't really get anything for their shooting except some extra range, which I've generally found to be not very relevant for a lot of the orc guns because of the size of the board and the mobility of the units that have those guns, right? If I've got a buggy and it's got rockets and they're 24 inches, but the buggy moves 12 inches, having an extra 6 inches of range isn't doing a lot for them. Okay, and that's kind of what I mean by that. So let's take a look at the list. Like I said, Evil Sunz had about a 25% win rate in the last 8 events that they did, and I believe that was just looking at the Arcs of Omen stats. And if I had to guess, I'd say it's because the people who are playing them are running, buggy heavy lists, very traditional Evil Sunz lists, and I don't think mine was very untraditional, but I just didn't lean on the buggies too hard. And so let's I've rambled enough. Let's go through it. So I had a war boss. He actually had mega armor. So we'll just fix that right now in mega armor. War boss in mega armor, and he did have Resmecha's redder paint and faster than use. Resmecha's redder paint is probably one of, if not the best relics in our codex. It gives the bearer an additional 2 inches of movement, and it makes all enemy units within engagement range of him fight last. And you slap that on a war boss in mega armor, and while they're not pants shittingly terrifying, they are still good enough in melee that you have to respect their capabilities. Right? They're gonna wound a land raider on 4s, and it's still -3 for 2 damage. So he's still going to do damage. He's going to do work. But you really need the relics and the warlord traits to make them scary in melee, whereas he's just really, really respectable and just slightly dangerous. But you do have to pick and choose your battles if you don't build him to just be a chopping machine. But the extra 2 inches means he'll move 8 inches because he goes from 5 to 6 for Evil Sunz plus 2 more for the redder paint, which gets us up to 8. Faster than use is I get to pick a core unit within 6 inches in my command phase. That core unit can advance and charge. Having access to advance and charge in this codex is really, really good when you consider that you only get it once per game, right? When you declare your WOG, the turn you declare it, you get it once per game, and then it's shut off. So if your timing for that declaration isn't good, you're going to flub a lot of your charges, and you just wasted an advance and charge, and now you're just picking up a lot of models that should have gotten into melee. So being able to send somebody turn 1, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, it was relevant multiple turns every game, and we'll dig into it. I had 2x10 Grots. Orc boys, I think, are kind of weird. In my opinion, you either bring a whole lot of them or you just don't bring them at all. Maybe you can bring like some truck boys or something, uh, things like that. But for what I wanted, they just weren't going to cut it. I could probably work some in, but I don't know what I would bring out. Okay. I had 2 units of 5 bikers, and man, those things were clutch every game. They are T5, 3 wounds, 4 up save. They're inherently -1 to hit against shooting. And so they were just really good every single game. 1 unit of 10 Storm Boys. So they get 13 inches of movement. They can auto advance 6, but 7 because of Evil Sunz. And, on a 4-up, they take a mortal if you advance them. We'll kind of get into how those played out and what their purpose was later. I had 2 units of 4 Coptas, and in Evil Sunz, Coptas are speed freaks, so they have access to the Fire and Fade strat that Evil Sunz has, which is a full movement, so they can clear 32 inches. They cannot charge, but they do get to move, shoot, move, which, again, came in pretty handy a couple games. I didn't use it as much as I thought I would, but I think a lot of that was just because of the matchups that I had. Let's see. 1x5 Mega Knobs with dub saws. I could have made them the dudes that are +1 to hit. I forget what the big crumpas or whatever. And I could have made them truck boys and put a truck in. I don't know. The extra, so it's funny because, again, the extra inch of movement doesn't sound like a lot, but it was very relevant most games. Uh, like extremely relevant. And then getting the bonus on the advance was also really relevant. So as much as it seems like, they don't get that much from Evil Sunz, that additional movement was very, very important. 1x10 knobs with big choppas, that's pretty self-explanatory. A unit of 5 commandos, and those are there just to bubble screen, right? If I've got an opponent who I know is just going to alpha strike me real hard, which I ended up playing 2 of them, those commandos were super clutch. I did have one wagon with the Ard case and a 5-up against, or a 5-up invulnerable save, the Fortress. And, again, very, very straightforward. Knobs and Mega Knobs, almost every game went in the wagon, and that's it. And then I had 3 Def Dreads that are all melee. And that should be it. I don't think I missed anything, but let's dig in. Round 1, I got TSons and Tzeentch Demon Soup. We played Tear Down Their Icons. That's the one that's got the little weird, like, triangle deployment zones. It goes from corner to midboard. And then you've got to plant the explosives for the bonus. And you could tell by looking at the score, neither one of us planted explosives. Played a kid named Luke. Nice kid. It was a weird game. It's one of those where I haven't played against TSons in a while, but I've played against them enough to know what to expect. He played the Cult of Duplicity. He took behind enemy lines. And so it was like, okay, he's just got a bunch of flamers. He's just going to jump them, try to kill me, and then score behind enemy line points. Thankfully, with Orks, they brought something that I had been lacking for the last couple months playing Drukhari, and that was a very solid board presence. I just had so many things that I could just leave stuff in my deployment zone and just be like, cool, you're not getting here. I'm sorry, but that's not what we're doing. Uh, you know, he took behind enemy lines. What else did he take? Raise the banners and Warp Ritual, which Warp Ritual he capped, which he should. He had I forget what Warp Time's called now, but he could just like move his Sorcerer up, Warp Ritual, and then Warp Time back. So it's one of those where it's a lot like the Eldar interaction. Like, okay, you're just going to get your 12 points. That's fine. So the main thing here, I did go second. I deployed well. He did jump his flamers, but all he could shoot were some commandos. So, is what it is. It's what they're there for. He killed my commandos, and then he lost his flamers to some rockets. And that was a game where I jumped the Coptas out. I shot my rockets. I killed the whole unit of flamers. I spent my 1 CP and jumped them back. Right? And then I just pushed up just a little bit to kind of prepare because, again, with as aggressive as he was, I knew he was coming. I didn't jump them back. I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I jumped them back. The Storm Boys got faster than you. I screamed them 20 inches up the board and was able to just tag as Thunder Chicken. So I charged that Thunder Chicken turn 1. And my thinking behind that was, if it smites me, it's got to hit the Storm Boys. He can't fall back and cast, so I don't have to worry about him just like screaming up the board and blasting 20 to 30 mortal wounds at me between Magnus and the Thunder Chicken. Magnus, if he gets up, like, that's fine. I've got the tools to deal with Magnus if he gets close enough. And if he doesn't get close enough, cool. Like, that's fine. So his turn 2 came up, right? And in his turn 2, and you can look at my score. What'd I get? Behind enemy line. Oh, I didn't take behind enemy lines that game. That's right. I took good bits. I took Abhor the Witch, and I took Assassinate. Which, again, he had a lot of characters. It made sense. Just get points for playing the game. So He did bring Magnus up. I threw the battle wagon right in the middle of the board, but I dumped everything out of it because I thought, man, if he's going to smite me, fine. He can smite the battle wagon. And then he ended up not killing the battle wagon with the smites. He had to charge it because it was move blocking Magnus in a way that, like, he wasn't going to charge around it or over it. He had to just kind of go into it. So Magnus charged it, big shock, the battle wagon died, but then there was Magnus right in the middle of the board, right? So then I declare my WOG, and my Death Killer Wartrike was basically in my deployment zone towards the back of the table. So that thing gets to advance and charge in the WOG. It gets to auto advance 9, but it's actually 10 on Evil Sunz, and he moves 16 because he's a speed freak. So that thing went from effectively my table edge to about 2 inches away from Magnus. And I was just like, this is it, buddy. And then my Mega Knobs also advanced to get into Magnus. And then I was able to send something into the Thunder Chicken just to slow it down again, right? And so, I moved that Death Kill to Wartrike, and then I started shooting, and that kid, like I said, he was just like, hey, well, what? Yeah, man, it moves so fast, and I get to shoot at no penalty because he's Evil Sunz and he has assault weapons, but I didn't hit with anything anyway because he's still ballistic skill 5. But then I charged Magnus, uh, I don't remember if I ramming speeded him or not, right? I think I did. And I ended up doing like 5 mortals on the charge because he's got Roadkiller for D3 mortals and then ramming speed for D3 mortals. Each one you roll a die, and on a 2-up you take a D3. So I did like 5 mortals to Magnus just on the charge. And then just dumped my Mega Knobs into him and just watched him go away, right? Like that was it. I'm done. I'm not playing with him. He's gone. And then once he came off the table, that was a sizable chunk of his force, and everything just kind of started unraveling from there for him. And he played it well. Like, he kept his composure, and he did play as good of a game as he probably could at that point. But that one mistake really cost him. And to be fair, his Thunder Chicken just kind of didn't do anything the whole game. Like, yes, I did a good job of tying it up with chaff units that I didn't give a shit about, but also just like when it went to cast spells, it just was not feeling it. So it's one of those where I got a little lucky because the Thunder Chicken didn't want to interact with the game, but I also don't know that that changes a whole lot in terms of the outcome. It probably just gives him a little bit better score. Uh, but yeah, that's how that went, and it was a super good game. He was a nice kid, really liked him. Couple interactions that were pretty funny. And I'm not putting him down in any way. Like I said, he was a nice kid. When we first started, first thing I said to him was like, hey, man, how well do you know Orks? And he was like, oh, I play against him a lot. I know him real well. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, here's what he's got. If you need anything, just ask. I'll tell you. But if you've already played a bunch of Orks, I shouldn't have to explain a bunch of stuff. And he's like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, you're playing Goffs, right? And I was like, no, I am not. And then he's looking at my board and he's like, why don't you have any squigs? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just not what I wanted to bring today, man. And he was just like, oh, okay. Uh, the first time, so the knob on Smash a Squig, as a lot of my viewers do know, we just call him Cowboy Larry around here. So Cowboy Larry slammed into, it might have been Magnus, it might have been the Thunder Chicken. I forget which one. Probably the Thunder Chicken. I rolled some dice, did some mortals, and then just started rolling attacks. And he was like, what? Why are you doing this? And I was like, because he's got Ed Wappa's Kill Chopper and Brutal But Cunning. And he was like, what? And I was telling him, like, yeah, man, this is how this works. And he was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, it's fine. We can look it up. I'm not worried about it. And then I did something with my Coptas, and I forget what I was fighting, but I was like, yeah, they're strength 6. They get 9 attacks each. And he was like, why do they get 9 attacks? And I'm like, because of the WOG. He's like, what about the WOG? And I'm like, the WOG gives me a bonus attack. They have 8 attacks? And I was like, no. They have 2 attacks, but they make 3 hit rolls for each attack. So on the WOG, they get 3 attacks times 3 hit rolls is 9 dice. And he was just like, I don't think they get that. And I was like, sure, buddy. Like, I'm sorry that you don't think they get that. And it's one of those where I would have gladly went through it with him and showed him, but he ended up like, I don't know if he looked it up or texted one of his buddies, and he was like, yeah, see, core units get advance and charge and blah blah blah. I was like, yeah, core units get advance and charge. Everything else gets blah 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 blah. And he was like, I don't think so. So I pulled it up in the app and I'm like, look, man, like, yes. I said, even my Gretchen get the 5-up invuln, the 6-up invuln on turn 2, the bonus attack, the bonus strength. Like, yes, my whole army gets it. So, and I don't think he was being rude or mean. I think he was a little bit frustrated with how the game was going, and I would assume that whatever orc player he plays against doesn't know that book as intimately as I do. So he probably kind of flubs a few of his rules here and there and doesn't just know them the way that I do. And that would be my assumption. Because, like I said, I never felt like he was trying to be malicious. I think he was just genuinely confused. And, with previous experience into this army, I think he was just like, why on earth are you doing all these crazy things? So, again, it was funny. I laughed. He didn't. That's okay. I'm not here for his amusement, I guess. um, But so key moments into that round. Turn 1, like I said, I did get to charge that Thunder Chicken. They ate most of an entire psychic phase just because it was like 11 wounds. Maybe 8 after he killed a couple with the chicken's fight backs. Magnus did die early, and I feel like that helped. And I don't remember if the chicken died turn 2 or if it was dead turn 3, but it absolutely died quick as well because I didn't care about his flamers. They were going to get to do whatever they wanted to do because he could teleport them. So I just tried to kill the things that couldn't teleport and that could really put out the damage. I did do, I think, a pretty good job of limiting his behind enemy lines. I think he only got 9 on it there. Yep. And his banners. He just didn't have the board presence to keep objectives. And with my extra mobility and the ability to put things off the table, he just struggled to hold objectives outside of just, scoring some primaries here and there. The one thing I will say, like I said, one of his first questions was, are you playing Goffs? And I was like, nah. And he was like, but they kill so much. And I was like, buddy, they're orcs. Once I get them in melee, I'm just, you'll see. Like, you'll see. If you've got somebody who can pilot this army, they're going to do well once they hit melee. Like, that's just the way the army works. Round 2, I got Custodes, so there were 2 lists that I did not want to hit. Because of the way my army was built and because I wasn't playing what I normally play, which would be Death Skulls, Custodes, not because of the mortal wounds, but just because I just don't like Custodes. Like, and a lot of that stems from just hearing Custodes players talk about how bad their army is while they're hitting everything in the game on 2s and re-rolling 1s, right? But the nice thing about playing Orks is that all their special stratagems that are like, ha, you don't get to reroll. Well, joke's on you. I don't reroll anyway, so wasn't a big deal. Ed, by the way, was my opponent. Super awesome dude. I really enjoyed playing with him. And he and I have seen each other at multiple events, but we've never played each other. So that was really cool. I just lost some viewers probably because I was dogging on Custodes. Or did I crash? Nope, we didn't crash. All right, cool. Um, so we played conversion. He had a tanks and dreads list, and he was upfront about it. He was like, "Hey man, I just copy pasted this right from an Art of War article, blah 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 blah." And I was like, "That's cool." And that's one of the things I do appreciate about people like Ed is they don't try to hide it. They're just like, "Yeah man, I just looked at this list, thought it was cool, thought I could do work with it, copy paste, cool man." Uh, the big deployment zone, right? Conversion's a table quarters deployment zone with a 9-inch no man's land in the middle. What that did let me do is get behind enemy lines pretty easily. I didn't. What I get? I got 11 points on it, so I didn't cap it, but I was able to just keep getting units in there, right? I didn't kill a ton, but I did kill just enough. And I'm telling you, so like, we played on the GW longboard layout, and those Caladius tanks were just like, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to shoot you as soon as you come out. And it was like, oh gosh. My turn 1 and turn 2, I was just like, this is going to be a quick game if I don't get something figured out real soon. Fortunately, what ended up happening was, and I did go second again this time. When I declared my WOG, I think it was turn 2. Turn 3 is when I finally started killing things, right? Because turn 2 I just like tagged some dreads to tie them up, and then turn 3 is when I was able to get my war boss and old Larry into them. And it was a big deal. Like turn 1, I was able to slam my Storm Boys into a tank. I didn't roll as well on the charge as I had wanted or needed to. Had I rolled better, I could have gotten behind enemy lines turn 1. But I got like a 4, which made the charge, but I re-rolled it with Here We Go and got a 5, which still made the charge. But I wasn't able to just pile in and consolidate and get that like behind enemy lines the way I had wanted to. Had I gotten a 7, uh, maybe an 8, I'd have been able to get it. So let's see, turn 1. What did I get anything? I don't think I got anything turn 1. Like not anything. I took it, bring it down, and that was kind of a big trap, right? Turn 2, I killed 1 tank and 1 dread, and then turn 3, I killed 2 dreads. That's what it is. I'm looking at the score sheet right now. And then get the good bits. Instantly got 6 on turn 2. I was able to get 6 because my commandos completed it, and Gretchen were able to get to an objective and complete one. Get the good bits is a really great objective if you bring Gretchen or Ludas or both. So that's awesome. I do suggest it for you Orc players out there. Either bring Grats, bring Ludas, or both. Even if it's just a couple units, it is going to score you points every game as long as you're smart with your models. Let's see. He took Grind Them Down, which he scored every turn but 1, which I kind of figured he would. Like, if Custodes aren't grinding, there's no way they're going to win the game. They're just not. They can't. He took Banners, and I think that's probably what lost him the game, was because, again, my mobility. That extra, and I keep saying it, like, that extra inch or 2 doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is, especially when I have access to advance and charge, advance and charge, advance and charge, right? And then bring it down, which he capped. I think I had 15 points on the nose, and he killed all my vehicles, which, again, kind of figured he would. But most of his stuff was either, at the end of the game, most of his stuff was either at 1 or 2 wounds. Like, I was just not close enough to killing it, or it hadn't been touched. Like, I think he had 1 or 2 tanks that just hadn't been touched. So that was kind of cool. And like I said, it was a really tight, close game. As you can see, it's 80-76. And man, it was just one of those where he just couldn't close that gap. Once I shut off his banners, that was it. And he didn't have the table presence to hold as many objectives as me. And as you can see, what is it, turn 3, I scored 4 points on Corrupted Ground. And I think it actually should have been 6 if I remember right, because I think you get 4 for the opponents and then 1 for a no man's land. And I had that, which that's not the end of the world. That just means I missed 2 points. Who cares? Nope. He. Never mind. I'm looking at the wrong one. 6. Turn 3. 1, 2, 3. Turn 3. I scored 6 on it. There we go. So we scored it right. Perfect. And that was a huge turn, because that turn is when I knocked off one of his banners. I scored 6 points. He didn't hold. It kept him from holding a lot more objectives than he did, and it just brought his primaries way down. Like that one turn was a huge swing, because it also took out his ability to put down any more banners, because he only had like 5 infantry models, and I killed 4 of them. I killed 4 of them on that one turn. Because what ended up happening, so turn 2, slammed into his tank with something, killed it, slammed into a dreadnought with Cowboy Larry, and effectively one-shotted it with Cowboy Larry. And the deer in headlights look that I get because of this model, if people haven't played against it, it's one of those interactions where it's really funny, because, most people think of the Orc Codex and they think, well, it's okay. Like, it has some good interactions, but there's nothing crazy good about it. And then here's my 65-point cowboy on a squig who's just like chugging PBR and slamming into trucks, right? And so he slammed into the dreadnought, and a lot of it was just dice. Like, I had really good dice, and he didn't in this one specific interaction. But I think that was just balancing out from the first turn, because the first turn, I put 10 wounds from rockets onto his tank, and he made all 10 of the invuln saves, and it's like a 5 up. So it's one of those where I think it was just the dice balancing out, and it was super funny. Because I charged, I did like 4 mortal wounds to him. He failed all the feel no pains, and then I just kept like doing brutal but cunning on him, and it was 1 damage at a time. But between the 4 mortals, I was able to chip off the other 5 wounds for him to die, and it was just like, sure, dude. I'm sorry, but dice be dice, man. And he was like, yeah. But no, like I said, it was a good game. He played it really well. It just came down to that one turn where I was able to take his backfield objective, and I wouldn't have been able to take it if I didn't have faster than use, because I was able to slap advance and charge on my mega knobs, who are now going to move a minimum of 8 inches because of the bonus advance and the bonus movement. So they were able to close that gap and make it an unfailable charge. And then he did a Tanglefoot bag, right? But and he rolled like a 4 or a 5, but because I was an inch away, it just meant I needed a 6, right? And that's what did it. Was just like, man, if I didn't have faster than use, because I did, I rolled a 6. Actually, I think I rolled a 5, and then here we goed it into a 6. So if I didn't have it, I would have absolutely not made that charge, and that game would have been his. So faster than use won me that game, hands down. Won't even deny it. Some key moments from that game. Like I said, my math is a little bit wrong here. Turn 2, I killed 1 dread in a tank, and then turn 3, I killed his troops, and then an additional 2 dreads. But those were the 2 big swings. And then just the Mega Knobs massacring whatever they touched that game was wild. Was absolutely wild. And if you're hitting chat, like if you guys are viewing, you're hitting chat, I'm still learning the YouTube format, so I apologize. I actually am not able to see it right now. There we go. Nah, I found it. Yes, I agree with you, JD. Sorry, I just got to that. I apologize. I'm still learning the so if you didn't see this, or if you don't hear this, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm still learning this software, and I just got the chat to pop up. And now that I've got the chat to pop up, yeah, absolutely. So, and then round 3, Grey Knights, and that's JD. He's the one that just hit me up on the chat. Like I said, I'm still learning everything, so I apologize to him for not seeing it sooner. We played the Scouring, and I'm actually, if you're still on, JD, I'm glad, because there's a couple things I did want to mention, and I'll start with those in the event that you're still here. I think honestly, he beat himself more than I was able to beat him. There was a little bit, and again, JD played a great game. As you can see, the score was super tight. He played a great game, but there was a couple parts in the middle of the game where I could tell he was getting a little flustered because of the way some of the things were panning out. And I think that is what led to his librarian mistake that he just discussed in the chat. So, but let's jump back to the beginning again. I went second, and JD hadn't played against Orks a lot, so he was a little more timid than I expected from a Grey Knights player. And honestly, what that did was let me kind of mash the gas and just go. And once I can get that foot on the pedal and go, like I'm just gonna keep going, keep going, keep going. And we joke about it, but a lot of times I'll tell people, man, like these games are gonna be over turn 3. I don't care who wins, but we're gonna be done by turn 3, right? And so he's a little timid because he wasn't sure what to expect from Orks, which is fair. Uh, and honestly, for his first or second game against Orks in 9th edition, I'm sorry it had to be against me, or even if it was against John, my buddy John. Those are not the guys you want for your first interaction with this army, because we've just been like reading this book basically every day for the last 2 years, right? He did teleport every turn. Like he did a good job trying to score his teleport secondary. But again, Bikes being -1 to hit and 3 wounds really helped prevent him from being able to kill things with his shooting. And that was important. You know, like he popped the Grandmaster out. Blah 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 blah. Did his thing, and that's it's just kind of the way it went, right? Like he popped it out, shot me, didn't wasn't able to completely kill a unit, and then I turn one I was able to countercharge it. Turn one I was able to charge him with a battle wagon and my storm boys. I didn't kill anything. I just chipped some wounds off of it. Yeah, and I can't again I can't argue with that either. You failed if you failed at least one purifying ritual every psychic phase, and that obviously didn't help either. You know, and like I said, I think that plays into it. It is one of those dice games. The mortal wound spells did their work, but then like the secondary interaction didn't kind of do its thing. And then, like I said, I was able to tag a couple different NDKs. I didn't really kill them. And like I said, I think, like I said, JD, I think a lot of it was like when that battle wagon exploded. I think that's really like one of those times where you just got a little flustered, and I think that's what led to like the librarian getting teleported because the battle wagon exploded. It was in his deployment zone, and what ended up happening was like I think like 4 mortal wounds to one NDK and like 3 or 4 to another. I knocked one of his characters down to a couple wounds. Even with the feel no pains, like generally he was taking 2 to 3. And then he just had 10 knobs sitting right in his deployment zone that he also now had to deal with. And then, you know, it just kind of slowed him down. Here's 10 guys that if you just leave them to their own devices, they will just pick apart everything in your army because they hit like a truck. And it did allow me to just kind of keep you or him at bay and just be like, cool, now you get to deal with that. And again, it's one of those where I 100% understand why the timidness. And the next time we play, it's going to be a completely different game from both of us, right? Because now we've both seen each other, how we play. Because I think this is the first game I've played against JD. If not the first, then the first one in a long time. Um, so it's one of those where once you learn a player's nuances, you can kind of plan and figure out what they're going to do a little bit better also. So let's see. With Cowboy Larry, I traded up a lot that game, and that also helped. And again, that's going to be one of those things where, again, with JD, like he hadn't played against it. I can tell him what he does, but hearing it and seeing it are two different things. And I'm pretty sure Cowboy Larry by himself did 2 Nemesis Dread Knights. Now they weren't full unwounded, but he went and did a lot of cleanup. And I know he did at least 2 5-mans of Inceptors, and he's just a 65-point model, right? So that's one of those where that knob on Smash a Squig, if you just leave it to its own devices, it's going to do so much work for me. And it's one of those where the few times JD was able to put any kind of shots or damage into it, it just didn't, like, his dice just weren't there for it. And again, that is the downside to dice games. So let's see. My takeaway so far, like I said, I brought kind of an off-meta list, and it has done well scoring. That says lost. What a silly goose I am. Let's fix that right now. Yep, yep, yep. And it's one of those, like I said, like you can tell somebody, hey, this is how this works. But man, telling them and them seeing it is totally different. So let's see. Is an off meta list. It has done well scoring. I think my lowest scoring game was in the 80s. So I can't complain there. I don't have any defense against mortals, and that's why like Grey Knights and TSons, the TSons I at least have played it against enough that I know what to expect. Grey Knights I've only played a handful of games against, and I kind of know what to expect. But there's a lot of different ways to play Grey Knights, whereas there's not a lot of different ways to play TSons, because Grey Knights have a lot of tools in their toolbox. you might not see them all the time, but they do have a lot of tools in their toolbox, right? They can take Venerable Dreadnoughts, they can take Nemesis Dread Knights, they've got the Paladins, they've they've got. Give me 1 second. They've got the Nemesis Dread Knights, they've got Paladins, they've got Terminator Troop Squads, they've got Jump Pack Boys, they've got a lot of different tools in their toolbox. Um, so you don't always know what to expect from them, and because they can support different play styles, you don't always know what to expect from the player. I played them at a tournament. Actually, I've played them at a couple tournaments since their codex came out. Now that I think about it, I've only played them at tournaments, if I remember right, aside from a handful of games with Alex when he was thinking maybe he wanted to play them. Because I played them at an ATC when my Ork Codex first came out. I played them. Whew. I played them. Gosh, I played them at another ATC not that long ago with my Yanari, and I played them at a doubles tournament when I was running some 8th Ed Demons with Matt, and then I played them something else. Oh, yeah, just now. So yeah, I've actually. Oh, and I played them. It was the 8th Ed Grey Knights book, but I played against them at a tournament before the Ork Codex came out. So that's funny that like I think almost all my Grey Knights experience has been at tournaments. So awesome. Like I said, it's an off-meta list. It has done well scoring. It does require a lot of precision and finesse, at least compared to like a lot of other Ork lists. Yeah, I'm always game. I get up there, like I said, once a month I'll be out that way, so we'll work it out. I think your timing when you arrive just happens to kind of be a little off because a lot of times when you're getting there, I'm in a game. But if I know about what time you're going, I can plan for it. So we'll work that out next time I'm heading out to Plymouth. Off meta list, blah blah blah. Requires some requires precision and finesse, at least when compared to like a lot of other orc lists. Like when you look at a lot of what are quote unquote meta orc lists with their kill rigs and their squigs, it's a lot of just like this is what I'm doing. I'm just gonna advance everything, which don't get me wrong, that's a lot of what I'm doing too. It's a lot of what I'm doing too. But because I don't get the extra damage output and I don't have the feel no pain against mortals that I would have if I were playing Death Skulls, I just have to be a little bit more careful with things. You know, like with Goffs, everything gets bonus strength on the charge, so you're able to slam those squigs into things you wouldn't normally be able to slam them into, right? Because they're strength 6, I think it is base. Maybe it's 5. Strength 6 on the charge, strength 7 on the wog. It's one of those where basically, man, like they can take down vehicles a lot more easily, right? In another faction. So I just have to kind of pick and choose my battles a little bit more. I am going to be taking the boys to Kagbash. I needed a break from Drukari. Like I did. I really just needed that break. That army was exhausting me and getting me to the point where I was just not enjoying a lot of my games. Not because it's hard, but because I had gotten to a point where I had kind of figured out where I was at with this army, with Drukari, and I was just like, man, in competitive games, if I go second, I'm just not winning, and if I go first, I'm just not losing. And just having that kind of, even if it's my own psychological mental block, just having that mental block of, well, let's roll off to see who wins. I just became an interaction I didn't like. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I went second every game. And I have been able to just like do well going second with Orks and do well going first with Orks. Every game feels like I'm in it rather than just like, yeah, all right, let's roll off and, shake hands. So I may come back to Dark Elves after Kagbash with a little bit, like a break and a fresh perspective that will help me. Um, but I want to get through Kagbash, and I've got Adepticon. Like I've got a very busy couple like month or so ahead of me, so I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. There was a couple other things I wanted to touch on, but I don't think it was anything too major. Let me see if I can find my sweet meme. I made a sweet meme for everybody. It's the sweetest of memes. Give me a second. What? Oh, yeah. What the honk? That's what we say around here. All right. Boop, boop. Just trying to pull it up. I'll throw it on the screen here. So, yeah. So, interestingly, actually, I'll just drop the results on the page. Give me a second. So, there's our top 6. Boop, 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 boop. And right there, JD, the guy that was in the chat with me, there he is. So he did very well. There we go. My buddy John ended up taking first place. We both went undefeated. He was 281 battle points, and I had 259. And so really what that means is he was just able to score a little bit more consistently than me. And without even looking, I would bet money it was on primaries because he was running Death Skulls. So he just had more OBSEC than I did. So he was better able to take objectives. I had to basically hold objectives or kill things off of objectives because I had literally 0 OBSEC in my list. None. It was funny, though. I thought it was hilarious. And there I am, second place with the Evil Sunz. And then dude from Fort Wayne, which is a town not too far away, Jake, he got third. He and Alex played, our Tau player. And I guess it was a pretty close game. I didn't get to see it, but he ended up dropping that game. Had Alex won, Alex would have probably been sitting at third just because of battle points. I don't think he had enough because of his round 1 to leapfrog me and take second. But he didn't, unfortunately. But Jake was a nice guy. I talked to him. He seemed like a good dude. And then Ed, fourth place with the Custodes. Ed was my round 2. So that's actually a really cool interaction. If you look, fifth place and fourth place were my round 2 and my round 3 matchups. So that speaks to the level of competition that I had to go through and that really this tournament had. There were a lot of really good players, and everybody played well. A lot of really high scoring games. So it was a really, really fun and competitive event. So that was pretty awesome. So the one thing I will say is when you get Orks in the top 2, it's Orkin time. There it is. Just wanted to share that with you guys. Basically, I'm a silly goose and decided I wanted to do that. And that's what we're going to close out with. So, again, thanks for watching. I hope you guys appreciate the recap. I'm dabbling on doing live streams on YouTube instead of Twitch. We'll see how this goes. I may still do my games on Twitch. I'm kind of mixed. We'll see. I need to kind of dip my toes into it and see how it goes. This Thursday, I believe we have Orks. I don't remember what else is coming up on the stream. But again, thanks a lot. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe, like videos. Appreciate you. Have a good day.